cinemagoers in 1975 who ventured in to see the first feature film produced by Monty Python's Flying Circus, entitled Monty Python and the Holy Grail, would have seen many intentionally ludicrous scenes. King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table, for instance, didn't have any horses and instead rode around knocking coconut shells together to make it sound like they were galloping. Another sketch provides a take on the absurdity of the witch hunts in medieval times.
What makes you think she's a witch?
Oh, she turned me into a newt.
A newt?
I got better.
But amongst the most iconic scenes is surely that involving the killer rabbit of Caerbannog, a fairly small white rabbit that kills 3 of the knights and injures several others, causing King Arthur to order his men to retreat in its wake. Only after calling upon the powers of the Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch are Arthur and his knights able to defeat the malevolent bunny rabbit. Now, of course, that seems like an absurd scenario. However, many medieval scholars have since pointed out that the ever-highbrow Pythons were sprinkling in some very clever literary references here. You see, the killer rabbit of Caerbannog was based on a strange feature of numerous famous illuminated manuscripts of the late medieval era, ones which often portray killer rabbits vividly in the marginal illustrations. A good place to start when it comes to assessing these medieval killer rabbits is the Smithfield Decretals. The Smithfield Decretals is an illuminated manuscript held in the British Library in London. These types of manuscripts got their name from the fact that their pages were illuminated by decorating them with colourful illustrations of one type or another. At its most basic, this might involve making the first letter in the first word on the page a very large size and illustrating it ornately with different coloured inks. More often than not, an illuminated manuscript will also include colourful drawings in the margins or in specifically allocated sections of the pages.
A picture book. I love a picture book, man. I think they're considered less intelligent. Like needing a picture book is kind of like considered like a less intelligent thing. But I think they're fun. It's like a comic book, man. You know? When I was a kid, because we learned like religion in school. I remember the Bible that the school had made, like their standard Bible, had pictures in it, man. It was called the Good News Bible. I loved that Bible. It was like, because of the illustrations that were in the Bible, like it felt like it was always fun, dude. You know, when you read something and you see a picture or an illustration that kind of helps you formulate an idea. You know, like in hindsight now, like I've thought about this many times, that style of that picture style really helped me get into the Bible, you know. Otherwise, I don't think I would have cared. Like the King James Bible, I don't think has pictures. It's just like text. And you just open the book and it's fucking intimidating, man. You know, it's scary. Maybe the Good News Bible was recommended because, man, that was a nice Bible, man. Probably my favorite Bible, you know. But maybe there's other versions of Bibles out there that are cool. There's different versions, but that was a really fun Bible to read, man. You know, because it's a lot of words. You're looking at a lot of words. You open up a Bible page, it's like, holy shit. The way it's structured, it's like, holy fuck. You know, that
or in specifically allocated sections of the pages. As a result, these manuscripts are one of the great art forms of medieval Europe. The Smithfield Decretals are one of many thousands of illuminated manuscripts extant today. What's especially peculiar about the appearance of drawings of killer rabbits in this manuscript is that the subject matter of the book was otherwise quite serious. The Smithfield Decretals are a copy of the Decretals of Pope Gregory XI. These were drawn up in the 1230s on the orders of Pope Gregory by St. Raymond of Peñafort, a Dominican cleric, and comprise an updated anthology of church or canon law. The Smithfield Decretals, a volume containing over 300 pages of Gregory's decretals, were actually compiled by a cleric named John Bataille in southern France in the early 14th century. The volume was taken to England not long afterwards and ended up at the religious priory of St. Bartholomew at Smithfield in London, thus acquiring the name. It was probably here that the illustrations were incorporated into the volume. Today, it is housed in the British Library in London. They ended up here in part because of the unique nature of the illustrations on the manuscript. Throughout these pages, lethal leopards parade around on their two hind legs, behaving like humans. In fact, they are often chasing and hunting human prey. In one scene, for instance, we see a figure desperately fleeing from a tall rabbit that stands, preparing to unleash an arrow from a bow. In another illustration, one is holding a man close to its chest, while a second rabbit sinisterly prepares to bludgeon him with a mace.
Yeah.
Elsewhere, a man is being decapitated by a rabbit wielding a long sword, while in
What the fuck is this about? Why rabbits, man? I know someone who thinks rabbits are creepy. You know? Like, I don't know. I know someone who thinks rabbits are creepy. I don't know how I feel about them. You know? I've seen them, I've held them. They're not very, yeah, but the rabbits I've held are like being, they're not like pet rabbits. Well, they were, but they weren't like inside someone's house just chilling with them where they're used to cuddling with people and stuff now. The rabbits I've seen have been in like a pen, you know, someone just breeding them to sell. Yeah. Yeah. My friend had rabbits. He used to breed them to sell them. You know. I remember never liking them because, well, not really like not liking them, but me, I like pets that I can pet. You know, these rabbits were, it felt like he was, every time he would try to feed them or retrieve like a water container from their pen, it was like war, bro. I'd have to stand back. I remember just standing back because it felt like he was wrestling with some fucking demon inside there, man. You know, I guess especially when they have like babies, they probably get really defensive. So I remember him putting his hand there to retrieve the water bottle, the water container, and just the commotion, man. You know, it just never felt like I want that. Like, I was like, okay, you do you, man. You do you, man. But I know someone who thinks they're creepy. I don't find them creepy. They're not for me. Rabbits. I don't care about rabbits. I'm indifferent to rabbits.
man prepares to bludgeon him with a mace. Elsewhere, a man is being decapitated by a rabbit wielding a long sword, while in
You know how chickens cause like if you enter a chicken coop, like the commotion, you know, if they're not used to you being there, the commotion, just the commotion they create can scare you. The flying around, the clacking, the commotion can scare you. I think it's their defense mechanism. It can overwhelm you, you know. They're not hurting you or anything. They're just flying around you, flapping their wings, clacking around. You feel like you're being overwhelmed, you know. Chickens can be scary like that. They used to terrify me doing that, you know. This same friend had chickens. We'd go in the fucking chicken coop to retrieve the eggs, and then they would just go crazy, man. You know. And I remember being like, this shit sucks, man. Dogs. I want a chill thing that I can pet. I know that's chicken farming, poultry farming, but same thing with rabbits. Now I've held some really chill rabbits too, but like I said, it's not for me. My cat killed a rabbit once, so I've told this story before. My cat killed a rabbit that was probably slightly bigger than my cat, and the struggle was so extended and brutal. I thought my cat was going to lose. I did not expect it. Because to me, I was like, this is a cat predator, and this is a rabbit. This is prey. And then when they got into it, I was scared for my cat, and the fight was too intense for me to step in and separate them. I couldn't do it. The cat eventually killed the rabbit. It was a horrible scene, dude. You don't one thing they don't show you on Nat Geo or any of these nature programs is the sound of the dying animal. That usually doesn't come through when you watch like nature shows. You see a lion killing something. They don't get like super close for you to hear what it sounds like, and it up close, it's terrifying, dude. You feel bad because it's basically just someone suffocating to death. Like you hear the breathing. It's creepy, because that's not how we kill animals as humans. We don't suffocate them. We just chop their heads off. There's blood splattering, there's kicking and stuff, but not so much the breathing thing. The breathing thing is really creepy. The deep breaths, you mostly see that, you mostly encounter that with chickens, when you're slaughtering chickens. I've slaughtered chickens before. I've slaughtered a goat before. I don't think I've done these things once, and I never want to do that again. It's weird.
Man is being bludgeoned him with a mace. Elsewhere, a man is being decapitated by a rabbit wielding a long sword, while in yet another scene, two bunnies are dragging a naked man who is tied up with some rope up a hill towards a gallows where they are clearly going to hang him. The scenes continue throughout the book. One even involves a man being held between two rabbits while a third sits before them as though it is a judge adjudicating on the man's fate. It's all quite jarring in its own way. Not just because we're seeing scene after scene of killer rabbits running amok.
Their noses never stop moving. It's one thing about rabbits, that their noses are always twitching. Always.
Not just because we're seeing scene after scene of killer rabbits running amok, but because there is such a strange contrast between the pictures and the actual text of the manuscript. A question quickly emerges. Why on earth are there images of horrible hares and raucous rabbits all over a manuscript primarily concerned with medieval canon or church law? Strangely enough, the images of the killer rabbits in the margins of the Smithfield decretals are not that unusual. There are a more robust example of the form, but it was quite common for medieval illuminated manuscripts to be decorated in the margins and other blank spaces by bizarre scenes of animals, trees, humans, and nature. And maybe even Yoda, apparently. These satirical images are known as drolleries, on account of their often humorous or absurd nature. The word derives from the French term drôlerie, meaning a joke. Drolleries are small images of any kind which might be included in a manuscript in this way, sort of a medieval meme. Often they focused on the idea of the world being turned upside down or the natural order of things being inverted. So, the Smithfield Decretals are a classic example, one which shows a world in which killer rabbits have taken on the guise of the hunters, while humans have become the hunted.
It's like a movie, man. It's like a picture movie, a picture story. What is it called? A storyboard. Yeah. It's like a comic book, man. I wonder if there were like books that were just purely drawings, or they are like comic books, you know, like this is like a lot, mostly text with the edges decorated with these drawings. I wonder if there was like just a book or someone who did just drawings, told stories through drawings. I'm sure there was.
Animals hunters, while humans have become the hunted. Animals were a common feature of such drolleries. For instance, in the Galston Psalter, another late medieval illuminated manuscript in the British Library, we see images of animals engaged in unusual activities. In another, known as the Macclesfield Psalter, which was produced right around the same time as the Smithfield Decretals in the 14th century, giant skates and other fish and mammals terrorise humans. Thus, there is no shortage of examples of drolleries in later medieval manuscripts, and the killer rabbits of the Smithfield Decretals fit within an established tradition of amusing marginalia that sits alongside much more sombre religious texts. Other examples of things which might be included as drolleries are the signs of the zodiac or things.
You know, they're supposed to be jokes, but they are really creepy. Especially juxtaposed with the text that is super religious. And then you're looking at the margins and you're seeing this thing that almost looks demonic. I think it adds to the mythical nature of whatever you're reading. It puts you in a different, I think it puts you in a different reality. You know, you're reading this super religious text and you're looking at these images. They look like beings that should not exist, you know. Like it's like you're looking at, you know, demonic beings or whatever. I think it puts you in a very particular mindset when you're reading the super religious stuff. You know? I think so. Drolleries, man. I didn't know. This is a good thing to learn about, because I've always found medieval art to be really creepy. Not all creepy. Like when they start drawing things like beings and stuff, you know, like someone depicted as some weird being, and you're like, man, what the fuck was going on with these people, man? They were just joking around. It's just art, man. You know, they didn't know that we would think about it so deeply, that we would overanalyze it and think about it so deeply right now. Because you read this thing, you stumble upon this by yourself, you can really get caught up in some cult shit. You think, oh my God, there's this other world out there that exists. Because I read a Bible, and you know, a Bible it's a manuscript, this one. I read this religious text, and you know, looking at all these weird fucking, it's like you're tripping. You know, it's like you're tripping. I feel like it has that effect. I don't know if that's why they did it. You know, maybe they're just like, man, this shit is boring. Add some fucking jokes at the margins. I don't know, man.
Things which might be included as drolleries are the signs of the zodiac or things which symbolize the passage of the seasons or other elements of the calendar. For instance, it is not uncommon to find pictures showing how medieval peasants lived around the vagaries of the annual harvest. Others could involve references to ancient culture.
This is what I'm talking about, man. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I say I find medieval art creepy. Shit like this. Because this somehow seeing this on a piece of paper drawn like this, knowing it's from medieval era, it's scarier to me than if you made this in a movie right now, or put this in a video game right now. You know, if without knowing that these are drolleries and this is just people just, you know, having fun. You come across shit like this from the medieval era and you start to wonder what the fuck was going on, man. You know? Like, damn. It's good to know, man. These are just, you know. I have closure now. I understand why I find medieval art so creepy. Got this thing, man.
And mythology. There are myths lived around the vagaries of the annual harvest. Others could involve references to ancient cultures and mythology. There are many other illuminated manuscripts that have drolleries featuring either killer rabbits or other animals engaged in quite spectacular behaviour. Perhaps the earliest example comes from the 1170s, a century and a half prior to when the Smithfield Decretals were produced. This is found in the Arnstein Pastorale, which is catalogued as Harley Manuscript 2801 in the British Library today. Here, the letter T at the beginning of a passage has been elaborately decorated to show two rabbits hanging a man from the top of the T, which, in this instance, has been turned into a gallows or gibbet.
Wow.
In another manuscript that was produced in France in the early...
Just a T, bro. Chill, man. Let's start the paragraph with a dead scene. A letter. Just a letter alone, dude. Right. You tell someone to write you a paragraph. It takes them forever and you're like, bro, it's just a paragraph. What are you doing? I'm working on the T.
Top of the T, which in this instance has been turned into a gallows or gibbet.
It's so well done too.
In another manuscript that was produced in France in the early 14th century, we see images where the world has truly been turned upside down. This is in the breviary or liturgical book of Renaud de Bar. Here, the rabbits are depicted as knights jousting with one another, while some unfortunate humans have been turned into horses of a kind. One is depicted, for instance, as a half-man, half-snail figure.
See, this is why I'm telling you medieval art creepy to me. Because I remember seeing shit like this in books as a kid, just randomly. And they just felt weird. They felt so dark and creepy. If you don't know what these are, you wonder what the fuck these people are going through, man. You know?
One is depicted, for instance, as a half-man, half-snail figure with a rabbit astride his back, charging at another rabbit. There are hundreds of richly decorated, illuminated manuscripts from the period between the 11th and 15th centuries, which show animals of all shapes and sizes engaged in peculiar behaviour. A slightly less comedic but richly decorated example is the Aberdeen Bestiary, a volume produced around the year 1200 in Scotland, which King Henry VIII of England acquired over 3 centuries later. Here, animals of various kinds appear on nearly every page, some being mythical creatures like griffins or phoenixes. Trees and other aspects of nature are also presented in peculiar and ornate ways. What all of this points toward is a society that had a very different impression of nature. Today we view nature as something we have conquered and gained mastery over, and instead need to try and preserve as much as possible. However, to people of the Middle Ages who lived with the constant threat of famine and violence, one in which a wolf attacking a village's sheep or rabbits laying waste to a field of crops overnight could make the local food supply precarious for weeks or months to come. Such images of wild and violent animals reflected psychological concerns about how precarious their own place in the world was.
Yeah.
This was a society that had not managed
Makes
to
a
gain
lot of
mastery
sense.
over nature yet, and their anxieties about this manifested themselves in peculiar ways in the margins of their manuscripts. While some took this very seriously, others took a more wry stance and created medieval memes that would circuitously end up in a Monty Python film. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed that, may I recommend that you check out our sister channel, Well I Never Stars. Right then, take care, and I'll see you next time with another story to make you say, well, I never.
I never knew, man. Good video, man. That was really nice. Learned a lot from that, man. I got closure from that. It's a very interesting. Actually, let me give this guy a subscribe. I enjoyed that a lot. I enjoyed the delivery. For some reason I've seen Monty Python. I remember watching Monty Python back in the day, man. I watch reactions to Monty Python here and there, because I watch reactions too. I guess the movie that has the rabbit, I haven't watched reactions to that as much, but I remember that scene. It's ridiculous. Wow. You just Roller is just jokes, man. We're just having fun with the space on the page, and it's so well done. Like that one that King Henry VIII acquired, like that would be such a good find. That's like, especially at the time when you don't have like many of these manuscripts of this style around. You come into possession of something like that. It's like, it's a great find. It's like imagine a world that doesn't have comic books, and then you have a comic book. You have this really cool comic book. Yeah, it's dope. Mostly, well, it's not just rabbits, but rabbits seem to be a popular one. A giant rabbit would be terrifying. Are rabbits rodents? Are rabbits rodents? Rabbits are not rodents. Rabbits belong to the order Lagomorpha, while rodents belong to the order Rodentia. Okay. While they share some superficial similarities and were once classified together, rabbits have distinct anatomical differences, such as 4 incisor teeth instead of 2 found in rodents. The 2 incisor teeth that rodents have is so creepy. I call it rodent mouth. The 2 front teeth, I hate that shit so much. I guess a giant rodent would be terrifying. It's the mouth, especially. They have a really terrifying looking mouth. It's is it an underbite? Yeah. Yeah, that was Well I Never. I've subscribed. Go show them love. Maybe we'll check out more stuff. I'll see what pops up now that I've subscribed. We'll see what pops up. What else does he have? Because that was really good, man. That was really good. That was really good. It's the same art you see in. It's like mythological beings. They're almost like mythological beings because they're combining. Like you're seeing that guy is like a combination of a human head and a snail body. You know, I think I remember coming across such images when I was a kid in maybe in libraries and just finding an odd book somewhere. I think even Viking stuff has weird beings like this, you know. Yeah. See you guys, man.